So I'm going to knock out a few more of these videos here today. The more I can do, probably in one sitting, the better, because I don't have to think about what I'm going to say. I could just start talking about the first things really that come to mind, and that's probably kind of a better approach. So number 12 looks just like you. A lot of people compare it to Eye of the Beholder, and the scripts do complement each other nicely. I don't think it was intentional on the part of the writer to make them as similar as they kind of ended up as number 12 ended up being to Eye of the Beholder. But they are both about this theme of lost or mistaken identity, and that theme actually crept into a lot of different Twilight Zone episodes about things that were completely different. That element of lost or mistaken identity kind of infiltrated a good number of other episodes, which were mostly about other things. But occasionally there would be a script about it, and Charles Beaumont wrote a few of them. And as the writer of number 12 looks just like you, John Tomerlin, mentioned, he said, Chuck was always sort of the inspiration for everything that we, his friends, did for him in the way of ghostwriting. And this is the only script that Tomerlin ghost wrote for Twilight Zone for Beaumont. He might have done some work for on other shows, because by the time 1963 rolled around, that was the last year of Beaumont's career, really. After that, he was too ill. He couldn't do any more. So it ended in 1963, after about 15 years of a career. A quick 15 years, and then really that was about it. But Tomerlin was in New York when he wrote the script, originally called The Beautiful People. And although Tomerlin mentioned that he liked Twilight Zone, he, like his friend Beaumont, was not a fan of television. These guys were radio lovers. They grew up in the radio era, and unfortunately, by the time they got to be adults, television had come along. So their radio career ideas were pretty well squelched, because by the time they were both about 20 years old, radio didn't exist. It did. It's just that having a career in it was not a thing anymore. Television was the new medium that everybody was going for, that everybody was starting to work in. It was, these were the maverick days of early television. So number 12 looks just like you, as I say, is a companion really piece to Eye of the Beholder, which was about glorious conformity. And this was also. And they're really kind of similar worlds, or at least they're presented as such, as these kind of unfeeling, emotionless kind of starkly and sparsely furnished, kind of computer-esque, computer age type worlds, although you don't see any computers in either episode. But they're both these, worlds where everybody has to conform. Well, here it is. Again, Twilight Zone takes something and puts it, and deals with it metaphorically. So of course we're not going to have, this societies like, those presented in these two Twilight Zone episodes, or like the one in The Obsolete Man, something like that. We're never going to have society like that. Everybody would go nuts and just be committing suicide and just getting on spaceships and trying to go to another universe, trying to get off of this planet, if it ever came to that. Certainly, we've had societies like that have been on that track, that have utterly failed or just never became popular. So, to discuss the episode itself, just briefly, it was very well cast with the top model in the world, top female model at that time, Susie Parker, along with a great actress, Colin Wilcox, who did a lot of television, and who the year before, in 1962, made an indelible impression upon tens, really, by this time, probably hundreds of millions of people, as Mayella Violet Ewell, the rape victim, in a bravura performance in the courtroom scenes in To Kill a Mockingbird. And then Richard Long played the male characters, and then Pam Austin played Colin's friend. Colin's character was Marilyn. Pamela Austin played Marilyn's friend Valerie, and ultimately she chooses the same pattern as Valerie to be transformed into. And those of you really with very sharp ears will notice, those of you who really like Twilight Zone and like to, all this trivia and stuff, know that the music for the music that's heard in number 12 Looks Just Like You is all stock clips. There was no incidental score written for that episode, and most of it was written by Bernard Herrmann for this series called this radio series of 1956 called Brave New World, and it appears actually in The Obsolete Man and some other episodes. Pardon me while I'm having to scratch a bit, but it is very hot and humid where I'm at right now. So Colin Wilcox, of course, she could always be counted on for excellent performances. She was not a beautiful actress. I think she was a beautiful person inside, but on the outside, she even admitted, she said, "I was no Susie Parker." And she said in this when she and I were discussing this, she said it was a little bit awkward having to just be plain old me alongside Susie Parker, who was a knockout. And then Pam Austin, I think, was I think she had must have won some sort of beauty contest or other, some sort of, not Miss America, but maybe, who knows, maybe she was from some state where she won the beauty pageant or 2 or 5 or 6 or 10. And then Richard Long, of course, was a tremendously good actor who unfortunately did not have a long life. He was a very ill man most of his life and died at a very young age, only about maybe 10 or so years later, after number 12 Looks Just Like You. But mentioning the Lost or Mistaken Identity episodes, Richard Long, of course, starred in Beaumont's Person or Persons Unknown in season 3, and directing number 12 was, of course, Abner Biberman, who directed really some of the best episodes of the series. The Dummy in season 3, of course, with Cliff Robertson, and number 12 Looks Just Like You, and then I Am the Night, Color Me Black, and The Incredible World of Horace Ford, and maybe 1 or 2 others. But The Dummy, of course, was his. If there was ever a tougher directorial job on Twilight Zone, there was, I would be hard pressed to find it. But anyway, so that really kind of sums up the comparison between Eye of the Beholder and number 12 Looks Just Like You. And for anyone who is interested, I published actually the shooting script and the original script of number 12 Looks Just Like You in this book. And I remember I still have copies of the original and the shooting script, but the original by Tomerlin was all marked up with pen markings and stuff like that, and big crossouts and stuff, and I don't think he didn't do it. I think it was the story editors of Twilight Zone who managed to do that, and they came out with a pretty good product. But Tomerlin's script was a little bit on the side of mechanical, and understandably so, and they softened it up a little bit, but not too much, and it really turned out rather well.